Welcome to Social Enterprise Summit 2014， 歡迎大家嚟臨社企民間高峰會2014。社企民間高峰會2014年籌委會主席李正儀博士為我哋致歡迎詞。Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for the Social Enterprise Summit 2014 Organizing Committee Chair, Dr. J. Lee。
民政事務局長曾一成先生、匯豐銀行黃婉薇女士、各位嘉賓、各位顧問、各位好朋友，我謹代表社企民間高峰會嘅所有合辦同埋伙伴團體以及籌委會成員，歡迎各位今日嚟到呢度。我哋好多謝你哋嘅參加同埋支持，我特別需要多謝曾一成局長百忙當中為今日嘅研討會作主持揭幕。多年嚟，社企民間高峰會同民政事務局嘅緊密合作，就一直係讓民間嘅智慧同埋政府嘅政策思維產生互動，係一個範例。當然，我哋都非常多謝各方面嘅朋友同埋機構嘅支持同埋鼓勵，包括今日出席嘅所有嘅講者、贊助機構同埋支持單位，我唔一一讀出嚟啦。轉眼之間，高峰會就第7年。今日同埋聽日嘅國際研討會同埋禮拜3嘅其他活動，我哋今朝估算一下，有超過3000人報名。呢個仲未包括我哋喺過去嗰2-3個月嚟，大概有1000個千幾人係參與咗其他嘅活動。呢2日嘅研討會，除咗嚟自英國、美國、德國、法國、葡萄牙、印度同埋新加坡等20位講者之外，仲有一批嚟自廣東嘅中山同埋其他地區嘅朋友參加。喺呢度，讓我哋一齊歡迎我哋海內海外嘅朋友，你哋都係我哋嘅貴賓，係香港嘅好朋友。大家可能仲記得我哋舊年開始就用咗一個新嘅 logo、新嘅標誌，同我哋個舊標誌嘅比較，我哋一直都有成全有創新。我哋當時將原來嗰把火改咗4個唔同嘅方向，反映出我哋希望推動文官商學嘅合作嘅一個理念嘅堅持。今年我哋嘅長刊大家都會睇到，我哋更採用咗熟悉嘅 LEGO 嘅模型嘅設計，亦都進一步表達我哋希望呢個跨界別嘅合作嘅重要性。呢啲 LEGO 我哋就係象徵我嚟建構未來模型組件核心分子嘅願景。社企必須係將4個界別黐住喺一齊，先至係未來發展嘅症結。今年嘅高峰會，我同大家分享下，我哋大概有3個新嘅主要嘗試。喺今年年中開始，我哋就加插咗一個課題，叫做社區論壇。呢個意料係嚟自舊年一位美國嘅講者 Christopher Jagan， 佢喺美國所實踐嘅呢個 community entrepreneurship 嘅經驗同埋一個嘅想法。因此，我哋就喺度檢討，我哋往年年都喺會展，當然嗰度好重要，佢幫我哋做到好多開拓思想、經驗交流嘅重要嘅工作。但係喺地區每日所發生嘅問題，我哋又好難咧喺個咁重要嘅地方咧係作出深入討論。就正如我哋政府都唔可以淨喺政府總部諗嘢咁，係咪？咁所以我哋喺各方面嘅支持底下，我哋今年決定咗用3個新嘅區，深水埗、九龍城同埋香港仔南區做試點。我哋做咗幾個社區論壇，我哋必須好多謝呢幾個區嘅區議會嘅主席同埋南區各個區嘅專員，同埋我哋個各區嘅好朋友，佢哋為咗我哋幫助我哋做咗好多好重要嘅準備同埋支持嘅工作。我哋後嚟就做咗3個區嘅社企圖，今日個會場咧應該係有得派發嘅。結果呢3個區嘅社區論壇比我哋想象中好。我最深嘅印象就係喺其中一個社區論壇，有參加者即刻就埋嚟同我講，話好多謝我哋今次有機會係集中討論佢個區嘅問題，同時用創新思維推動文官商學合作嘅精神社區化，共同去研究同埋解決問題。出年我哋希望大家繼續支持呢個社區論壇嘅思想，讓我哋嘅廣度同埋深度能進一步加強。今日喺灣仔區呢個場做開幕典禮，當然亦都請各位紆尊降貴嚟到呢個區嘅原因啦。第2個我哋新嘅嘗試就係今年嘅晚宴，我必須多謝 DID Keynote Speeches Anthony 同埋女工商嘅朋友，佢哋勇於嘗試將 DID 一個新嘅項目，為聽障而設嘅一個 Dialogue in Silence 無聲對話呢個項目，喺一個傳統中國人嘅海鮮舫珍寶嗰度舉行。我哋今晚連開19席，雖然呢個價錢呢係非常之高，大家都想唔到呢嗰個成本有幾貴。我哋連籌委會成員包括我在內呢都唔可以免費，但係呢佢結果因為有特色同埋創新，已經係爆滿。我亦都多謝匯豐銀行基金嘅支持，讓我哋1年1度嘅 Business Luncheon 商務午宴，除咗喺高峰會國際研討會即係聽日會舉行之外，我哋亦都會喺年中有2至3場小型嘅午餐 mini luncheon。今年呢，我哋已經開始作出試驗，個反應都非常好。相信我哋明年再安排嘅時候，大家都會期盼接受到呢個邀請。聽日嘅 Business Luncheon 仍然喺會展舉行。個反應都好理想，亦都係有16席都已經滿咗啦。如果各位係預訂咗你嘅座位嘅，聽日就唔好遲到。講咗咁多呢，我就係需要講下今年嗰個主題。我哋籌委會嘅成員共同訂定咗社企創明天 Answers to Tomorrow 呢一個嘅主題，因為我哋深信喺各種水深火熱嘅社會問題當中，社會企業能夠為香港帶出一個社會創新經濟學嘅新方向，讓香港嘅資本主義自由市場主導嘅情況底下，能夠鼓勵我哋嘅企業唔好利潤最大化為本，而係構建社會有正面效益嘅理念喺佢哋嘅運作之中，可以係涉及教育、扶貧、環境、安老、社區更新、傳媒等等各方面嘅議題。為此，我哋聽日嘅分組嘅討論將會喺呢度修頓同會展舉行，一共有6個主軸，係包括社企嘅生態嘅系統、社會嘅創業嘅好例子，同埋我哋一啲嘅社企嘅創業家嘅分享。當然仲有香港嘅經驗分享同埋社區論壇嘅分享等等。呢度呢，就仲會有一個社企挑戰馬拉松。咁聽日下晝4點鐘之後呢，就請大家翻去會展 SES 室。嗰度呢，就我哋會同政府係傾咗2日嘢之後，共同再進一步探討政策嘅大方向點走，大家一齊出謀獻計。而聽朝早9點鐘喺會展嘅講一個社企生態系統嘅環節，仲有一個首次公開嘅研究報告，係由 SES 中文大學一位教授 Kevin 佢領導研究嘅。嗰個報告呢，我睇咗好多次，做得非常之好，好全面咁樣去探討香港社企嘅發展，同埋做出你嘅政策建議，希望大家踴躍參加。從理念到實踐，我相信社企嘅理念已經喺度不斷開花，亦都逐漸有結果。高峰會推動向前，為明天創建嘅精神，亦都係我哋香港嘅精神。我希望在座各位都認同呢個精神，可以為我哋共同創造更多共融、共享同埋可持續嘅社會理念。最後，我必須多謝 Vincent 同我哋秘書處嘅同事，大家頭先睇到一個咁精彩嘅開場嘅表演，都係 Vincent 咧精心炮製，令到呢個場咧都有一個特別嘅感覺。咁最後，我亦都係多謝各界對我哋多年嚟嘅支持，呢幾日我希望大家能夠積極參與我哋所有嘅活動，多謝大家。
唔該晒主席，係麻煩喺右邊可以落翻去。Thank you, Dr. Jane Lee。我想講一講咧，雖然我哋係精心炮製啦，但係頭先無面跳舞嗰個唔係我嚟嘅。咁咧就may I also ask if you need simultaneous interpretation? Can you please raise your hand? Our staff can also bring you the machine. Can I have a slight show of hands, please? There's someone over there and 2 person over there, please. With some of our staff, please help deliver the simultaneous interpretation machines over there. Anyone from there? 有冇人需講得廣東話唔使啦。Okay, there's someone over there with the simultaneous interpret machines. Okay, and then 10 people over there. 好，唔該咁多位同事，我哋盡快將我哋嘅即時傳譯嘅機器咧就可以送俾佢哋手上嚇。咁接住落嚟咧，我哋以熱烈嘅掌聲，非常之感謝咧，我哋今日嚟臨為我哋開始咧做一個主禮嘉賓嘅，有請民政事務局局長曾德成先生，曾局長有請。
各位社企界嘅朋友， 我哋知道今日有唔少學生同埋教師嚟㗎，好多謝你哋出席。各位嘉賓，大家好，我好高興咧再度出席社企民間高峰會。香港係喺2007年由政府第一次舉辦社企高峰會嘅，接住咧由2008年起，高峰會由民間籌辦，民政事務局支持，至今咧已踏入第7年。喺各方面嘅共同努力之下，社企民間高峰會不單止成為本港社企界嘅年度盛事，亦都係國際上社企專題嘅最重要會議之一，讓海內外眾多嘅社會企業家同埋相關人士匯聚一堂，交流經驗，大家都覺得好有價值。所以借今日嘅機會，我要向一直為多屆高峰會勞心勞力嘅李正儀博士同埋各位籌辦人員，向各個支持機構，包括匯豐銀行，以及遠道而來嘅專家講者，致深切嘅謝意。For the 3 speakers today, Ms. Bowen, Ms. Shah, Dr. Sherman, a very warm welcome to you for coming to address the summit today. 香港會繼續積極推動跨地區嘅社企合作。趁呢次高峰會，我哋可以就社企至今喺香港嘅發展作一個階段性嘅總結。我擔任主席嘅社會企業諮詢委員會，舊年委託咗香港中文大學同埋社會服務聯會就社企嘅狀況同埋未來發展進行研究。我好高興話俾大家聽，研究報告咧已經完成。中文大學嘅歐耀輝教授將會喺今次會議期間就報告作專題介紹。先睹為快，讓我先引述報告嘅一啲內容。首先，報告確定香港嘅社企無論喺量同埋質方面都穩步發展。社企數目由6年前嘅260間增加到而家450多間。社企嘅服務同埋對象亦都越趨多元化。第二，社企得到咗多方面嘅支持，政府同埋持份者緊密合作，幾乎每年都增添新嘅計劃或者平台，幫助推動社企發展。例如2006年嘅伙伴倡自強計劃，2007至08年培育大專社創精英嘅社企挑戰賽，以及社聯匯豐社企商會中心嘅成立。2009年嘅社企總會同埋其後嘅社企認證計劃。2011年首推嘅社企獎勵計劃，以至2012年建立嘅社創基金、好單位同埋良心消費運動等。而家社企嘅平台同埋支援機構有超過30種，我有冇錯啊？在展示跨界別合作嘅力量。社企亦得到公眾更廣泛嘅認同。研究顯示，近80%受訪者都知悉社企，較2009年同類研究顯示嘅60%明顯增加。同時，大約70%受訪者表示喺未來會購買社企嘅服務或者產品。第三，社企喺實現公益目標嘅同時，經營方面亦能夠穩定發展。2012年度約60%受訪嘅社企能夠達至收支平衡或者有盈利。另外，80%參與伙伴倡自強計劃嘅社企喺資助期之後能夠持續營運。社企嘅營運模式亦都更加多樣化，屬於非註冊慈善團體嘅比率 過去6年由佔受訪嘅16%增加到34%。社企創造咗較高嘅社會效益，伙伴倡自強同埋創業展才能2項政府資助嘅社企計劃，合共為弱勢社群創造超過3200個職位。研究報告亦都就未來發展作出咗建議。我同埋社企諮詢委員會經過討論，同意報告提出嘅策略方向，堅持以民間主導、政府支持，維護社企多元嘅發展，繼續發揮社企協助弱勢社群就業嘅主要功能，同時亦都鼓勵創新，達至更加多元嘅社會目標。為咗推動社企發展，今後一段時間將會聚焦4項工作，包括強化支援服務、加強人才培訓同埋能力嘅提升，促進跨界別合作，以及推廣社會參與。剛才阿 Jane 已經提到，配合今年高峰會喺九龍城、深水埗同埋南區3個社區都舉辦論壇，建立社企交流平台。我亦都好高興今日嘅開幕式喺洲際球場呢度舉行，亦都更加深入社區。我哋會繼續支持社企植根社區，達至社企共贏、社區共贏嘅精神。香港嘅社企發展雖然尚處於初步階段，但係基礎已經確立，今後有廣闊嘅拓展空間，足可以吸納多方面嘅人士發揮自己嘅才華，包括可以有項目嘅策劃者、創效投資者 （Impact Investors）、創投慈善家 （Venture Philanthropists）， 當然仲有各種崗位上面嘅員工。我哋嘅願景係使社企成為凝聚互助力量嘅平台，推動社會創新進步。今年嘅高峰會以社企創明天為主題，我相信喺大家共同努力之下，社企百花齊放，香港嘅明天一定會更好。多謝大家。
多謝局長，多謝局長，唔該晒。好啦，多謝局長為我哋咧講咗一番語重心長嘅説話。當然我哋社企咁多年咧，我印象好深刻㗎，因為咧最初我哋唔係搞咁多人㗎啫。最初搞半日，跟住嚟一倍變咗搞咗1日，跟住變成搞2日。我好記得咧有一次咧就係今年就喺修頓搞啦，修頓同埋會展中間嗰點係咩啊？大家知唔知啊？就係、是、賽海圍辦公室啦，就係、是、社聯嗰度啦。社聯嗰年咧，我哋就開始搞2日，咁啊大件事啦，因為咧唔夠坐，但係社聯好嘢喎，又即刻喺隔離房可以做到 live feed 喎。咁啊，所以咧又搞掂，於是我哋要諗下咧，就不如都喺會展搞啦。咁會展都唔夠坐啦，咁今年咧我哋就坐過嚟。咁頭先我啲同事話咧，就大概而家都已經有1000人坐咗喺嗰度，咁啊另外有18人都會遲到嘅，永遠都。咁所以咧佢哋就要坐喺嗰邊㗎啦。咁所以佢哋落去下面，仲有啲同事喺下面登記緊。不如再開一開 house slide， 我睇下邊個仲未攞到呢一個即時傳譯嘅機器啊 ？May I know who has not yet get the simultaneous interpretation machine, please? Okay, so there. You absolutely embrace the concept of being to a summit. You sit so high up over there， 真係坐喺高峰㗎，佢哋真係坐到好高嘅其實。好啦，好明顯啦，我其實咧就係拉緊步，因為咧就等我後邊咧呢一個台咧已經不知不覺間咁啊走咗啦。咁而家咧我哋咧就會開始咧我哋嘅啟動儀式。我哋首先有請香港社會創業論壇張瑞林先生 Patrick， 社企民間高峰會籌委會3位副主席。蔡一偉先生、謝家駒博士、黃英琪女士，另外咁多年咧都好支持我哋社企民間高峰會嘅匯豐香港區嘅總裁馮婉薇女士啊 ，Tita，Hello， 好啦，逐一上嚟，我哋每人咧俾咗個能量波佢哋啊，好啦 ，Patrick 就喺呢邊 ，Patrick 喺呢度，好啦，Ada 咧就喺呢度啦。好啦 ，KK 喺呢度 ，KK 企嚟隔離啦，海偉喺阿 Patrick 隔離得啦。好啦 ，Anita 企中間，好啦，嗱，我哋不如 今日頭先阿 Jane 就話今日嘅主題係咩話 ？Our answers for tomorrow 係嘛？我哋要問下對明天有咩答案喎？局長話揾到個答案咧就可以創明天啦。咁啊，不如海偉先啦，你對明天有咩答案？
我希望咧社企精神咧就唔係喺社企度發生，而係植根於政府每一個部門啦、每間嘅企業啦、每個 NGO 啦同埋每個人嘅心入邊嘅。
好，咁啊擺喺個心入邊啊，我哋啊，咁然之後可以發光發亮啊。Patrick 咧
係以踏實嘅行動，而唔係口號，去逐步咁用社會創新嘅方法嚟令我哋社會一步步更好。
好，多謝。我哋嘅明天有咩答案咧？
我希望每一個持份者都能夠本住為社企可以係持續同埋好健康咁樣發展，大家合作，一齊努力。
好，大家合作一齊努力啊！好 ，KK 咯喎。
我希望咧多啲商界嘅朋友參與呢個社會創新，佢哋自己動手，然之後咧帶動商業企業嚟參與社會創新。
係咪呢排咧隔離你咁講㗎？有商界嘅朋友舉舉手嚟睇下好嘛？商界嘅朋友舉舉手 ，Hello， 好，都幾多喎今年都算多啊其實。好，最後問埋 Ada 咯喎 ，Ada， 明天有咩答案？
社區嘅問題需要三方合作，社區中團達至社會創新。
好，咁啊，我哋咧就俾啲掌聲我哋幾位嘉賓啊！好啦，咁最後我哋要請埋我哋主禮嘉賓出嚟先，有請我哋嘅籌委會主席李靜怡博士陪同曾德成局長一齊上台，好嗎？我都有個啊，我都有個啊。好啦，阿 Jane 曾局長，冇理由漏咗阿 Jane 㗎，係咪？阿 Jane，明天有咩答案啊？明天我嘅答案好清楚，好早7點鐘要去到會展。我嘅答案就好清楚。
我同你一樣早。我都希望咧，我哋即係香港能夠民生工學咧，各個界別都係能夠一樣咁，即係有個心係支持社企，因為咧社企其實我哋每一個人其實都可以做得到。
咁好啊，咁或者不如咁啦，好似阿 Patrick 咁講啦，我哋每人行前一步啊。嗱，我哋每人行前一步，因為咧我已經將你頭先嘅願望咧注咗入另外一個波，個波咧快高長大，係啦，就喺嗰度，係同事們小心，或者請阿局長同阿 Jane 咧一齊拎住呢一個願望能量球啊！咁另外咧，我哋請埋幾位副主席，Nina， 我哋去後邊啊，好嘛？我哋去後邊，每人咧就將我哋個能量球咧就擺上去呢3個位度。磁石呢一邊可以貼落去得㗎啦，預備咯喎，我哋一齊擺上去先。好啊，1、2、3 ，OK， 好啦，慢慢咧，我哋個社企火花咧就出嚟咯喎，有請阿局長同阿 Jane 一齊將我哋嘅願望之球咧就擺落去嗰個火花嗰度。社企創明天，嗱，我哋不如影一張相啦。嗱，呢個能量球咧唔能夠淨係講㗎嚇，我哋要俾個能量佢。我哋不如一齊俾啲能量佢啊！嗱，我哋一齊俾啲能量佢。1、2、3，好啦，我哋俾多啲能量佢啦已經。我哋一齊影張團體相啊！我哋企埋少少影張團體相，企埋少少影張團體相，企埋少少。KK 不如企喺呢度啦，好嘛 ？Ada 可以企埋少少啦。好，大家俾啲掌聲，我哋嘅主禮嘉賓同埋幾位主席。另外就我多謝匯豐咁多年嚟嘅支持啊！喺呢個時間咧，阿 Jane 啊，我哋好多朋友嚟咗係嘛？我哋不如請埋我哋啲顧問啊、演講嘉賓啊一齊上台啊 ！Can I also invite all our speakers from overseas? Please come on stage and take a group photo as well as for our advisors. 阿專員啊，係，好，另外所有籌委會成員都一齊上嚟啦，好嘛？Hi, Jack. Thank you.
好，
Hello Carl。今年個台咧，好似比舊年仲橫咗好多。攝影師，我哋咁樣夠唔夠位啊？
右邊俾多幾個。
右邊過嚟呢邊啦，不如請我哋兩位地區論壇嘅籌委會成員係 Alan 同阿徐嚟過嚟呢邊，好唔好啊？好啦，
仲有位啊，右邊仲有位啊。
好啊，不如阿 Jessica、Patricia、Doris 都過埋嚟呢邊啦，好唔好啊？多謝你哋。得唔得啊？攝影師？得，
右邊有位㗎，叫佢企闊都得。你使唔使話俾聲？後邊嗰個。
好啦。好，掟過去，掟過去有啲危險喎，真係。好啦，不如我哋一齊舉高個能量波啦。OK， 舉高能量波，我哋一齊影張相。希望大家未來呢幾日咧，可以同我哋一齊尋找答案啊！好，多謝晒，多謝晒咁多位籌委會成員，咁多位顧問，我哋咁多位嘉賓。Thank you all the foreign speakers. We actually have recorded some of the answers from our organizing committee. 多謝咁多位籌委會嘉賓。我哋其實咧有幾個籌委會咧都錄低咗佢哋對明天嘅答案。不如聽聽佢哋對明天有咩答案啊？好，等陣。社企嘅路途係好荊棘嘅，所以我哋都知道嘅。係冇理由咁樣遲落去㗎，係嘛？我哋咧一陣間再播嗰啲答案俾大家聽，因為未揾到答案我哋聽完我哋嘅 speakers 之後咧就會知道答案㗎啦。咁但係呢一刻咧，我想大家同我一齊咧去歡迎我哋下一個表演嘉賓，都係一間社企嘅，就係舊年咧我哋嘅 SC Award 嘅其中一個得獎者 My Concert。我哋一齊俾掌聲，呢邊嘅朋友俾啲掌聲我好嘛？呢邊嘅朋友咧，都俾啲掌聲我，歡呼聲。Let's put our hands together and welcome My Concert。 Thank you, my concept. My concept is a social enterprise who have won the SE Award last year.
我哋每一個嘅商業嘅機構，我哋都同時係有關懷社會嘅元素，成為佢哋嘅運作嘅一個重要嘅部分，係令到咧佢哋嘅嗰個嘅營商嘅賺錢嘅目的，亦都同時有一個同樣重要嘅底線，就係社會關懷。
以新嘅手法處理舊嘅社會問題，推動社會嘅創新，迎接新嘅社會來臨。
如果社企嘅精神及理念能夠被更多人所接受同埋採用，我相信我哋嘅社會一定會更加和諧及進步。
作為工商界，我哋應該利用我哋營商經驗、資源同埋網絡，推動社企、政府同埋學界共同作跨界嘅合作，共同推動社會嘅創新，去為我哋嘅社會創造更多社會嘅經濟效益。
互相關愛，互相扶持。咁我諗我哋能夠構造一個和諧、公平同埋有活力嘅社會咧，就係不遠。
我哋咧就喺今日喺服務團體、NGO 或者係商界嘅話咧，佢已經將社企嘅概念融入咗佢哋嘅工作，鼓勵我哋年輕人從事社會創新。
只要我哋有勇氣創新，就可以將今日同埋第日嘅問題一齊解決。
多元化、多姿同埋多樣性。更加重要嘅係需要一齊嘅參與。
人生冇咗呢個明天嘅希望咧，冇太樂趣，冇玩㗎。
如果我哋每一個都關心我哋周圍嘅人同埋事嘅時候咧，我哋一定可以揾到將來嘅答案。
未來咧可能係會有充滿住一啲變幻啦，有好都有壞。只要我哋咧每一個人而家開始身體力行，我相信將會有一個更加好嘅未來。
我希望年輕人能夠關心社會，敢於了解，思慮啲。最近香港都面對好多唔同嘅挑戰，好多考驗。佢好相信咧，我哋明日係需要唔同嘅界別，不同好真誠嘅溝通，最後嘅大運，需要更加嘅創造，就一種明天嘅希望。
未來咧係好多未知之數嘅，所以我覺得最緊要咧就而家我哋着力培育，透過社企推廣教育，去培育更加多嘅 change maker，同埋培育更加多嘅企業成為社會企業。呢個就係我哋嘅明天。
或者我哋一班成年人對未來嘅答案係點樣透過呢班青少年嘅潛能，或者點樣將社會嘅未來交翻俾佢哋？
企業家應該憑住愛心同埋慈愛做好今日我哋嘅社會企業嘅事務。
我對明天嘅答案就係
Welcome 每一個人 ，Welcome everyone to your change。
社企創明天 ，Our answers for tomorrow。
Welcome everyone。咁啊，歡迎大家嚟到 SES 2014啦。咁咧就呢一個咧係一個公平活理花茶嚟㗎。It's a fair trade jasmine tea and it's organic. And you can get a free drink over there. We have a fair trade counter over there, so you can get your free drink. Also, you can also go to the book counter and purchase some of the very interesting book by some of our speakers and interesting entrepreneurs today. Like this one. Will be our first keynote speaker, Jenny Bowen, founder and CEO of Half the Sky Foundation. Jenny, thank you. Jenny 點樣幫我哋撐起半邊天啊 ？Jenny, would you like to keep the book here? I should get your signature on this one. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you so much. Well, it's a wonderful honor to be here. It's very exciting for me. I've been to Hong Kong, of course, many times and lived in Hong Kong for a while. But to be honest, I had no idea until this day and until looking out here that there was so much interest in social enterprise. This is fantastic to see. Congratulations to you all for wanting to make a better world and believing that you might have something to do with making that happen. When I began Half the Sky Foundation, I didn't know I was a social entrepreneur. In fact, I didn't know what social enterprise was. I'd never heard the term, and maybe it didn't even exist because this was 1998 that I began. And now, when I think about social enterprise and what a social entrepreneur is, because now, not just here in Hong Kong, but all over the world, there's so much more interest in what they call social enterprise. And I've been fortunate enough, I won a wonderful award called the Skoll Award for Social Entrepreneurship, which is a global award. And every year there are a huge gathering in Oxford of people like myself who set out to do something, and now they're all called social entrepreneurs. What I think a social entrepreneur is, I don't think a social enterprise has to make a profit. I don't think it has to be inherently self-sustaining, though it has to find a way to be sustainable. But what I think is, for myself, the definition of a social entrepreneur, a person who creates social enterprise, is someone who sees a solution to what seems to be, what appears to be an insolvable problem, an unsolvable problem, who sees a solution to something that can't be solved. And it's usually the ones that really work well are very simple solutions. But then that person feels compelled to realize that solution, and not only realize it, but take it to scale. Most social entrepreneurs that I've had the privilege to meet now are people who are unstoppable because they see how to fix something and they see that nobody else is doing it. So some of the greatest innovations have come from those kinds of ideas. Also in business, I mean, things like Facebook. How simple is that? And yet it's become massive. That's a different kind of social enterprise, I guess. That's definitely very much a for-profit enterprise. But it's really the same thing. It's just a simple solution to the inability for people to all come together in a global age. And that guy came up with a simple solution. My social enterprise, Half the Sky Foundation, came about because of something that happened in my life. My husband and I heard about one day in 1996 little girls who were being abandoned in China because they were little girls. And we learned about the conditions in China's state-run welfare institutions. And we set out to do something simple, basically save one life. Never, ever, ever imagining what would happen and how many lives would be changed, not just our own, but probably the lives of millions of children. So I have short little films which just show you the beginnings and why I've been doing what I've been doing for the past 16 years and will not stop until the day I die. So can we roll that little film, please? Humans are complicated creatures. We come in what appears to be an infinite variety of shapes and sizes. We live our days pursuing a limitless assortment of activities, desires, and dreams. Some of us, it seems, have absolutely nothing in common, except what we need to survive. But there's one thing that all of us share, something so fundamental to all humans, so essential, that it separates us from other creatures, the need to love and be loved. So what happens when a human, a still developing child, is deprived of that most basic human need? Babies who live without knowing a loving human touch simply fail to thrive. Without hugs and caresses, essential growth hormones are not stimulated. Children deprived of love have smaller brains, weaker bodies, are prone to illness.
If such a child survives, and so basic is the need for love that many do not. If such a child survives, she will struggle to learn, struggle to make friends. She may never fall in love, trust another human being, hold a job, strive for a goal. She may never know happiness. Is there any hope for such children? The ones who spend their most critical early months and years languishing alone and forgotten? Can anything be done for children like these? Yes, most definitely yes, something can be done. We learned that in 1997, almost by accident, when my husband Richard and I brought our little daughter Maya to an orphanage in China. Maya had never known love or what it felt like to matter to another human being. You could see it in her face. There was an emptiness about her, and then, buried deep down, an aching hurt. But when she felt the love of family and began to trust that it was hers forever, our little girl blossomed. And when I saw the joy and love of life shining in our Maya's face, I just knew that if loving family-like care could be given to children living in Chinese government welfare institutions, those children would also thrive. And so, along with other adopted families and new friends I found in China, I created Half the Sky. The journey has certainly not been easy. But we persisted. Today, over 100,000 once forgotten children have been given a second chance at childhood. Half the Sky is everyday proof that nannies don't need to be biologically related to the children in their care to create the nurturing environment that allows infants and toddlers to develop trust and self-confidence. Proof that carefully trained teachers, mentors, and foster parents are adults in the life of every child. That day will come. We always knew it would. But what does it matter? A Chinese philosopher once said, all the children who are held in love will know how to love others. Spread these virtues through the world. Nothing more need be done.
When we brought our little girl home, she was almost 2 years old. She couldn't walk. She had no language. She was ill. She was malnourished. She had a lot of parasites. But the most frightening thing was that she was just emotionally vacant. There was no one there. I was an experienced mom. We had 2 grown children. Our nest was empty when we brought Maya home. I knew how to love a child, of course, and I'd raised children successfully, but I didn't know how to reach this little girl. It was just a little shell of a child. Before I went to China to adopt Maya, I had a very different life. I was a screenwriter and a filmmaker, a director of independent films, screenwriter for hire in Hollywood. We lived a very comfortable, not particularly meaningful existence. And when I got the call to come to China to meet our little girl, I was shooting a movie in California and got on a plane the minute that we got the call, or as soon as we could after finishing the shooting. And so I came back to California with this little baby who was so hurt that she couldn't even look at me and didn't know how to accept a hug. And I had a movie to edit. So what I did was I moved the whole editing room into my house. I brought the whole team and all the equipment and just filled my house with editing, film editing. And I sat Maya on my lap and I just talked to her and played with her and sang to her while editing my movie. Her first words were dialogue from my movie. You know how when you cut a film, you say the same thing over and over and over again? That's how she learned to talk. But the most important thing was I was constantly in her face. I was constantly there with her while she was awake, making sure that she knew that her life mattered to someone, that she was loved. And I wasn't really aware of what was happening and how my little girl was blossoming until the 1-year anniversary of her adoption. We were having a big party at our house in Los Angeles, and I looked out my kitchen window. And there was my little girl romping around in the garden, full of joy, calling out to her friends, and through that kitchen glass, she looked like a child who had been adored from the moment she was born. The simple solution. Oh, that's so easy. What we did for Maya is so easy. Why can't we bring that to all the children we can't bring home? So, I started Half the Sky. So of course I was totally unqualified to start an NGO in China, where I'd only been once before. I didn't speak the language, needless to say. I'd only been there once to adopt. I had never dealt with a government official of any sort, and yet the children I wanted to help were living in state-run welfare institutions. I didn't really know that much about child development. I just knew what mommies knew. But I had one skill. And I think this is what made me a social entrepreneur. I took my one meager talent and I turned it into a tool that enabled me to transform, not single-handedly, but to bring about the transformation of China's entire child welfare system. I was a storyteller. I'd always written. I wrote books and screenplays. I've written all my life. I made movies. I knew how to imagine a world that didn't exist. I knew how to start with a blank piece of paper. And although I didn't have any idea whether I was writing a screenplay or the story of China's child welfare system, how I was going to get to the ending, I wasn't afraid of the journey. And what I want to share with those of you out there who have an idea, who are trying to make something happen, don't be afraid. If I can do it, anybody can do it. I am a completely ordinary person with, one might say, no business going to China and offering my suggestions to the Chinese government about how they could improve the care of their children. But you know what? I saw a solution. And if I didn't try, it might not happen because nobody else was doing what I saw. And so from that day, that July day in 1998, I knew that I would do this thing, that I must do this thing. That's a social entrepreneur. That's what it means to feel driven to make this change, to help work toward the solution. And I never, ever, ever, as hard as it was, and I'm not ever pretending that this foreign face could go to China, to the Ministry of Civil Affairs, the most inward-looking ministry in the Chinese government, which has very little to do with foreigners, could go there and make these changes. I'm never going to pretend to you that that was an easy thing to do. It was very, very difficult. But I saw what must be done. And here we are, 16 years later. Half the Sky operates programs inside state-run children's welfare institutions in 54 cities across China. We have a team of about 1,400 people, some who work directly with children, some who are trainers and some who are child development experts that are based in the provinces. We have a partnership with China's Ministry of Civil Affairs to train every child welfare worker in the country in best practices in child care. We launched that program on June 1st, China's Children's Day, in 2011 at the Great Hall of People, supported by corporate supporters, public, ordinary citizens, an NGO coming together, business, government, the people, all coming together to do something for the welfare of children. Never before happened in China. It happened with a foreigner, maybe because at that point in time that was the only way it could have happened. But it doesn't really matter. Today, our Chinese sister organization, Chunhui Children's Foundation, it's only now 2 years old. We just this last year hired a CEO to run it. Just this last weekend, we celebrated our second annual gala in Beijing. We have an all-Chinese board of directors. Chunhui is allowed, unlike China, unlike half the sky was, Chunhui is allowed to fundraise in China for among the Chinese people. And the government has now, after all of these years of working toward this, just this last weekend committed to taking on responsibility for almost 100% of the operating costs of these programs. So this is what can happen if just ordinary people like me or you come together and say, we see a solution. There's a problem out there. We think we know how to fix it, and we're just not going to stop until we get there. So I just want to say to all of you, I'm totally happy to talk to any of you about all of your innovative ideas, but I want you to believe in your hearts that you can do it. You can make change. Sometimes we feel like we're helpless. We can all make change. If I, an American, can do it in China for the children, you can do it. You can do it anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny Bowen. Hi, Jenny. I just wonder, do you know how to write the Chinese word for sky? Tian?
I know it's Tian.
Tian, yeah. You recognize the Tian from our stage? We actually have Tian over there. Oh, here, right there. I'll show you. Okay, you have 1 in 5 chance that. All right. Okay. I'm sure you know all 5 characters here, right? This is, yeah, but no, this is sky, actually. Yes, this is Tian. All right, so you want to take a picture with the Tian?
I do, but I just want to say it's embarrassing because I can find the ladies' room in China, but I still don't know the characters in my organization.
Actually, the Chinese character for lady is very similar to the word sky. Okay, so Jenny Bowen from Half the Sky. Okay, thank you, Jenny. Well, this is Sky, and for those who cannot read Chinese, let me have a very quick lesson. Okay, this is social, enterprise, create, tomorrow, sky. So it's social enterprise, create tomorrow. What you may not know is the sign language for tomorrow. How should I do tomorrow in sign language? This is tomorrow. Ah, okay. So this is tomorrow. Thank you for our sign language interpreter. Thank you. The Social Enterprise Summit wants to amalgam ideas from 4 sectors: the academics, the government officials, or the public sector, and also the civic sector, but last but not least, the commercial sector. Our next speaker is from the Shah Foundation, Ms. Meera Shah. Thank you. I have a very brief glimpse of her PowerPoint, and I think she is going to show you social innovation, just like oil refinery. There are many, many processes, many, many theories behind that. Ms. Meera Shah.
Thank you very much. It's a real honor and privilege to be here today. I can't promise to do a dance or a laser show, but I can promise to follow the Energy Ball theme. So I'm here representing the Shah Foundation, and for those of you who are not familiar with the Shah Foundation, we are an independent charitable foundation based in the UK, established in 2000. I'm just going to try and figure out how to use this, so bear with me. Right. We catalyze sustainable and scalable solutions to global development challenges related to access to energy and sustainable transportation and mobility. We work with a few strategic partners to create new market-based models, and we deploy more than money to scale and replicate new solutions. When I first joined Shell Foundation, one of the first partners I visited was called Hustle Power Systems. Now, Hustle Power Systems is a social enterprise based in India, and they are a pioneer in decentralized energy solutions to supply off-grid communities in India. One of my first trips was actually to Bihar in India, and for those of you who are not familiar with it, Bihar is one of the poorest states in India, and the majority of the population, and that's a population much larger than the UK, do not have access to energy. I was in the field in a village, the then CEO at the time, Ganesh, and he said to me, "You have no idea what it feels like not to have energy." And the truth is, I don't. I probably still don't, but at the time, I had a glimpse, and that image for me sticks for life. What happened was we were in the field, in a land that's known for kidnappings, in a land that is probably lawless, and is, to be honest, exceptionally scary, especially for a woman. And I didn't see anything. It was pitch black. And Ganesh, he shone a torch into the distance. And there I could see young women going to the toilet, well, not really the toilet, going into the field to go about going to the toilet, because in the day, they don't have access to sanitation. They don't have access to a toilet. And in India, it's not culturally acceptable to use basic needs in daylight. Ganesh then shone the torch slightly further on, and there I saw men lurking around, ready to take advantage of those women. That has stung me for life. And for me, access to energy means so much more than not having access to healthcare, i.e. because there's no energy in the hospital, or not being able to study at night, or not being able to do something enterprising, i.e. having your shop open till later on at night. It is also related to sanitation. It is also related to safety, security, rape. Some of the things that we don't naturally think about if we're not posed with that issue. Ganesh then took me to a village that is electrified by Hustle Power Systems. And there, shops were open in the evening, women were engaging in economic activity, students were studying late till night, health clinics were functional, and because of access to electricity, people were enterprising. Just to give you an idea of the situation, and to be honest, the numbers are staggering, and I'm not going to read that slide, you can see it for yourself. But nearly 2 billion people around the world, that's 3 in every 10 people, lack access to reliable and affordable energy, which constrains them of healthcare, education, and earning potential. Of this group, 60% live entirely without electricity. Instead, they rely on expensive, harmful, and highly polluting fuels, such as kerosene and diesel. Now, in China alone, 30% of the population do not have access to clean cooking fuels. With the majority of development dollars and private investment directed towards national grid extensions and large-scale power plants, we at the Shell Foundation have gone for a different approach. We've decided to focus on small-scale, decentralized solutions that are innovative. Here are a few examples on the slide. And these solutions are better suited to people in rural areas where there isn't access to general electricity, where it's unreliable, and where if there was access, it would be expensive. These solutions have the potential to deliver safer, affordable and reliable energy that is more cost-effective and more timely to actually deliver. So I don't actually have the answers to tomorrow. I wish I did, and the truth of the matter is I don't. But what I can do is I can share some of the lessons learned we have experienced in developing in addressing a global social issue. As time and time again, we have seen timelessly social impact investors, social entrepreneurs, corporates, governments, NGOs reinvent the wheel. And the truth is, it's incredibly hard and it requires patience, doing, failing, and learning. One social enterprise alone cannot solve a market barrier without the support of an ecosystem and a range of intermediaries and players working together to tackle the multiple barriers that are standing in the way of addressing that social solution. So the reason why I'm sharing this is not to convince you all to go into access to energy, not to convince you about the technicalities of access to energy, but just share our approach in addressing a global social issue. Shah Foundation has worked with over 100 entrepreneurs over the last 14 years, and we've invested around $74 million in an effort to develop new, innovative, disruptive solutions. And our approach has kind of changed over the last 14 years. And the truth is, at the beginning, we weren't effective, but we learned. And our initial approach was characterized by small, short-term grant giving to a multitude of NGOs and a conventional form of philanthropy that we found poorly suited to our objectives. And we call this kind of a spray and pray approach, where we went from many, many organizations. And actually what happened over 3 years when we started in 2000, 75% of those businesses actually failed. And failed for very simple reasons: their ability to execute, or they just actually didn't deliver on what they said they were slated to deliver, or maybe they didn't understand the market needs. And through a process of trial and error, we discovered we could radically improve our philanthropy effectiveness by focusing our resource on developing new approaches with carefully selected enterprises and supporting them to develop organizational capacity needed to validate and scale these new business models. So this experience forced us to develop an enterprise-based theory of change that involved developing and understanding market failures that prevent modern energy solutions reaching the base of the pyramid, and co-creating social enterprises to solve them. And in understanding this, we actually understood that these pioneers required patient, flexible grant funding and extensive business skills support to refine those business models. We found ourselves proactively analyzing markets, building networks, testing a few high-risk, transformative ideas, and developing long-term partnerships with these enterprises. And actually, our lessons learned and our failures was critical for us to understand this new approach. We believe failure is important to innovation, and we shouldn't be afraid to fail. So by 2009, we focused our approach to a small, selected number of entrepreneurs developing solutions to modern energy services, like cook stoves, like solar lights, and organizations like House Power Systems. And over the next few years, we started engaging with organizations who are now global pioneers, like EnviroFit, D-Light, House Power Systems, and Encopa. And they began to demonstrate to the market that there is a market for decentralized energy services. But each business still remained fragile. They still weren't achieving the growth that we were looking for. And it became clear that structural barriers such as low consumer awareness, affordability constraints, and limited routes to markets stood in the way of significant growth and global scale. So over time, with a series of direct interventions, that evolved into something much more strategic. We started to prioritize the creation of dedicated market enablers, intermediary businesses, financiers, and industry bodies to provide the critical market infrastructure that a broader set of early-stage enterprises needed to thrive. Reflecting on our experience, our approach in 2000 probably wasn't sufficient for the scale that we were looking for. And then we evolved into a theory of a 6-stage model. And I'd actually like to share that with you, because if there's something that I'd like you to take away, it's the 6-step model. Oh, sorry. So Shah Foundation works in 6 areas to accelerate social innovation and build new inclusive markets. We play a catalytic role to demonstrate the viability and scalability of transformative new business models. And then we create market enablers that channel support from investors, corporates, NGOs, and governments. So the first stage in the triangle there is we catalyze. We understand the issue. What is the market failure? How big is this problem, and what can we do about it? If I just take the context of access to energy and the number of people who don't have access to energy, I'm going to try and take that through the different stages. So then we pilot. And to be honest, we burned a lot of cash piloting, but we needed to do it. And if you just, again, take the access to energy and, what is the right product? What is the right business model for a good solar home system? It's kind of the sweet spot. What's the right price? What is the right kind of durability point? And what is the right environmental impact? And that took years of R&D, research, innovation, not just on the product side, but on the business model side. Someone had to buy this product. It wasn't really given away for free. And so we found that the right sweet spot, the organization to do that was Delight. And then we developed a long-term relationship with them. So that's the third triangle. We created a pioneer. And often we co-created pioneers that essentially target large-scale impact and financial independence. We provided early-stage funding, management support, and business skills to help those pioneers refine business models, develop their customer offerings, develop a customer base, and then we take them to scale. We help these organizations not just reach a village, not just reach 5 states in India, but ultimately provide that solution to multiple markets who actually need the solution. And in essence, one of the key things that we've learned is actually recruiting the right talents. Without talent, and this is top-notch talent. I mean, one of the examples in Delight is the head of sales, ex-Unilever 20 years. The head of the organization is ex-20 years in Colgate. You need talent with business mindsets to make this work, because it is hard. And even though we've got some of these organizations to scale, we still haven't cracked it, we still haven't figured it out. And the reason I go back to is these structural barriers. So, in the context of social impact products like solar lighting or clean cook stoves, despite there being a need, and we've understood this need, people are buying these products, millions have bought these products, but yet we've hardly scratched the surface. We haven't even met 5% of the market demand. And the reason why is that people aren't aware of these products. Why should you change years and generations of how you cook just because one organization has come onto the scene? Why should you pay upwards of $20, which to your eye is like, should I buy a car? And these are key structural barriers. So what we've done is we've built markets. And in doing that, which is the last stage, is we've actually co-created market enablers to address these structural barriers. This might be across the supply chain, this might be to do with working capital. And I'll just share 2 examples to put it in context. In the absence of existing supply chains for manufacturers of products that they can easily leverage, we co-created an organization called Dharma Life in 2010, who essentially have created a last-mile distribution supply chain. They create awareness in villages through 2,500 village-level entrepreneurs in India, and they've actually served 1.5 million consumers just in a few years who are actually paying for hygiene products, sanitation products, access to energy products. They've become the last mile distributor of choice for Unilever, Coca-Cola, Usha Singer, Hero Honda, D-Light, and Environment. On affordability, we've been trying for years with microfinance institutions. We hadn't quite reached scale with that. And then we came across MCOPA. MCOPA is an innovative organization that, through leveraging mobile money, is addressing the affordability challenge by enabling low-income consumers pay for a solar home system through their mobile phone. And to date, they've sold 100,000 units at their own financial risk and have developed a global partnership with Vodafone. This slide just gives you an idea of our portfolio. It's small, and the reason why is we have to provide significant business support to these organizations. And we don't just work with enterprises and coming up with a really cool product. It's also the boring stuff, the stuff like working capital. You know, these things need to be solved to actually create a whole ecosystem and supply chain. So to tackle the social issues of today and tomorrow, our lessons learned have taught us that a business mindset is critical to addressing those solutions. This is not an easy space, and it requires patience, especially from social impact investors. We have merely scratched the surface, like I said, and there are so many more market barriers that are standing in the way to scale. So really, for all of you here, this is an enormous opportunity so you can address systemic change and scalable social impact. And the last thing I'll say is it requires multiple players, multiple organizations, NGOs, corporates, social enterprises, individuals to come together to develop that ecosystem so that we can reach scale and sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, Meera. All right， 多謝晒。我哋咧就花少少時間咧講下呢一個社企百寶袋。係，再講一次 SES 百寶袋。好，裏邊有啲咩嘅咧 ？All right， 咁都有掌聲啊，都好容易壓低嘅。好啦，裏邊咧就有幾樣嘢嘅。第一，頭先局長介紹過㗎啦。有3幅社企地圖，咁呢個咧就係南區嘅有隻鴨仔嘅。Okay, the Southern District with the duck, the Kowloon City District obviously with the dragon, and also the Sam Shui Po District with a lot of old store. Sam Shui Po, for our foreign speakers, is actually deep water district. Yeah, and each map actually has a detailed description of different store, thanks to the SC directory by the HKCSS, and also a map of these stores. So you can actually go Christmas shopping early and try to buy something from the social enterprises. We also, without letting James know, we actually have our website, our mobile site for this web ready. So these maps, you can either take the hard copy or you can log into our website and use your mobile phone for a soft copy. So these are 3 maps. We also have special cover issues of the social enterprises across different districts. We also have our social enterprise ad with all our foreign speakers on South China Morning Post. Some of the figures about social enterprise development. We have the SIE Fund introduction leaflet, the SCBC social enterprise sector in Hong Kong leaflet, the program, but last but not least, please fill in the questionnaire. Please fill in the questionnaire. Not yet. We would love to hear your answer for tomorrow and also give us some very useful feedback for SES 2015, because we need to keep on transforming. And this is why we have invited our third speaker, our third keynote speaker for today, to talk about how to become transformers. Sorry, how to become not transformers, but a transformative action person. So without further ado, we have Transformative Action Institute, the founder of this interesting institute, Scott Sherman.
Okay, so I'm going to need your help. I know there's an energy ball right here, but I came from California and it's after midnight where I'm from. So I want to take the first 30 seconds and feed off of your energy. If everybody could just stand up and talk to each other, and I want to feed off of your energy. So for 30 seconds, stand up, talk to each other, move around, and then I'll feed off of the energy in the room. Okay, thank you very much. You may sit now. So, I have to admit that I'm a little nervous. I do a lot of public speaking, but it's always challenging to do public speaking. Yes, you enjoy the speaking to each other, which is good. But I want to talk to you about the science of making the world a better place. Now, Margaret Mead, an American anthropologist, once famously said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." I don't know if I necessarily agree with it that it's the only thing that ever has. I think that all of the sectors that we've gathered here today, the government and business, they can also change the world. But it occurred to me that this, for me, the question of how do we make the world a better place, was really important for very personal reasons. When I was 17 years old, my first week in college, I was attacked, brutally beaten, and left to die. It was gang initiation night, and the way you're initiated into the gang is to kill someone. I happened to be the random person they selected. I was not in a gang. I have no memory of that night. I was with two women, and until a few weeks ago, neither woman would ever tell me what happened that night because it was so scary, so traumatic, seeing me brutally attacked and left for dead on the streets. And after that, my first memory is in the emergency room at the hospital, and a police officer was standing over me saying, "You need to call your parents." And I didn't want to call my mother from the emergency room of a hospital and tell her that I had just been brutally attacked and almost killed. But the police officer said, "If you don't call, then we're going to call." And I certainly didn't want my mother getting a call from the police in the middle of the night from the emergency room. So the question that I started to ask is, how can we create a world where no mother has to ever get that call saying that violence like this has happened? How can we create a world in which all the other social problems, poverty and injustice and poor health, how can we overcome those? Well, when I went to college, all my classes were about problems. I didn't see any classes about solutions. So I decided I want to research myself. What are the solutions to making the world a better place? But it's hard. Here's a cartoon of wolves who are howling at the moon, and one wolf turns to another wolf and says, "My question is, are we making an impact?" This question of people who are trying to do good for the world, are we actually making social impact? I worked as a community organizer with the same group as Barack Obama. I was an attorney. And yet so many of the things we were doing to try to change the world, we felt like we were losing. We were frustrated, we were exhausted, we didn't feel like we were making a difference. So I decided to study when people do make a difference. Because back in my days in college, people used to march through the streets. I went to the University of California at Berkeley, and this is very much something they do in Berkeley. People march through the streets and say, "The people, united, will never be defeated." And a friend of mine, she was a comedian, and she turned to me and she said, "I don't think that's true." She said, "Let's change the slogan to reflect reality. Let's change the slogan to, the people, united, will sometimes win and sometimes lose." It's not quite as catchy. But I decided to study for my PhD, when do people win? What are the most effective ways? So to start with, I'll tell you what I found, which was really surprising and shocking to me. And it starts with the story. So like Jenny, I'm from Los Angeles. I'm a storyteller, grew up around Hollywood, love the movies. And there's a story about a famous screenwriting teacher. Many people come to Los Angeles and to Hollywood because they want to write movies. And so there's one very famous teacher that everybody wants to learn from. And he walks in on the first day and he says to all of his students, "Oh, it's very good to see all of you here." And you know what I was just thinking? You are all very lucky to have me as your teacher. Because when I took screenwriting, my professor forgot. He was so forgetful, he would forget things all the time. Every single day, he would start off class with the exact same story. And everybody laughs because they paid a lot of money to be there, so they figure they should laugh. And the class goes on, and on day 2, the professor walks in and he says, "It's good to see you, class." And I was just thinking how lucky all of you are. Because when I took screenwriting, I had this professor who was very forgetful, and he always started class with the same story. Now all of a sudden, all the students are looking at each other nervously. Should we tell the professor that he just told the same story? But nobody does. And on the 3rd day, the professor comes back and he starts class with the same story. And on the 4th day, and on the 5th day, and on the 6th day, he starts class with the exact same story about his professor who started class with the exact same story. Finally, on the 7th day, a student raises her hand and says, "Excuse me, teacher, you've started each class with the same story every day." And the professor says, "Finally, somebody spoke the truth." Because the essence of all great writing is to speak the truth. If you are afraid of speaking what's in your heart, if you are afraid of talking about what's truly important in life, you will never be a great writer. And it turns out the same is true for being a great change maker. It turns out the first principle of being a change maker is you need to shine a light to speak the truth about injustice in the world. Wherever there is injustice or corruption or problems in society, we need to speak out. Because problems thrive in secrecy. Problems thrive in the darkness. A Supreme Court Justice of the United States said, "Sunlight is the best disinfectant." In other words, sunlight is what you need to heal the wounds of society. We need to shine a light on social problems. So let me give you a couple examples from the United States. This is the Grand Canyon. Many of you may recognize it, one of the most famous places, national parks to visit. About 50 years ago, the United States decided to flood the Grand Canyon. They decided they were going to build a dam and fill the Grand Canyon with water. And so they were going to destroy this beautiful national park. But they said, we're actually improving the Grand Canyon. Because now tourists can go in boats through the Grand Canyon and they can go right up to walls and like see the walls from up close in their boat. And this could have passed and they could have destroyed the most beautiful place in the United States. But a few people decided we need to let the world know, we need to speak the truth, we need to shine a light. So they ran an advertisement in the New York Times talking about the plans to flood the Grand Canyon because the government said it would allow people to take boats to see the walls. And they said, should we also flood the Sistine Chapel in Rome so that tourists can take boats up to Michelangelo's frescoes and see his paintings up close? When they decided to shine this light, people were so outraged to hear that the government was going to flood the Grand Canyon that they stopped the plan, and they were successful. Another example, another beautiful place in the United States, in Hawaii. They had a plan for energy development, but unsustainable energy development. It was going to destroy much of the native beauty of Hawaii. So again, a group decided to use this example. They needed to let the world know. So you may see beautiful tourist brochures for Hawaii. They created a brochure that said, come to Hawaii, swim in polluted waters, see ugly electric towers, breathe toxic fumes. Well, that managed to end the project. When people saw a light, they said, we can't do this anymore. But the problem is that that's not good enough, because oftentimes when you shine a light on problems, you make a lot of enemies. People don't want the problems to be exposed. And so the next principle for changing the world effectively is what I call social Aikido. So like the martial art of Aikido, you transform the energy of your so-called enemy, and you transform your enemy into your friend. In fact, an American president, Abraham Lincoln, he was president 150 years ago, said, I destroy my enemies when I make them my friends. There are lots, I got this off the internet, there are lots of interesting quotes from Lincoln on the internet. One is, the problem with quotes on the internet is it is hard to verify their authenticity. Abraham Lincoln. I like the picture of Abraham Lincoln holding up an iPhone. But the actual quote before is true. The idea of social Aikido is you transform enemies into allies, transform hatred into goodwill, transform conflict into cooperation. It's not us versus them. We are all on the same side, working together to create a better world. The government, the corporations, the people, we're all on the same side, and we need to join hands to make a better world rather than fight each other. And this gets to the next principle, and the final principle of changing the world, which is exemplified by this story. A teacher had 2 glasses of water, and into one of the glasses of water, she poured some dirt and grime, so now the glass of water was dirty. And she said to the student, never tell anyone that they are holding a dirty glass of water, because people don't like you to point out their problems. People don't like when you say, you're wrong, you're bad. Don't tell them that their glass of water is dirty, because people will go into denial and they'll say, my glass of water isn't dirty, and they'll hate you and resent you and push you away. So what the teacher said, a much better strategy, hold up the 2 glasses of water side by side and let the other person choose for himself or herself which one they prefer. And this is the essence of the third principle of changing the world, which is the essence of social entrepreneurship. It's not enough to protest what's wrong in the world. We need to offer a cleaner glass of water, offer a better alternative. And that is what social entrepreneurs do. we create a better vision of the future. Now, I mentioned that I'm from Los Angeles, from Hollywood actually, and a lot of people come to Los Angeles thinking it's going to be like this, that they're going to see lots of movie stars in the streets everywhere, and that it will be very glamorous. And it turns out that Los Angeles looks more like this. And we have a lot of problems with our pollution, just like I think Hong Kong and China sometimes do. Oops. Uh-oh. Something happened. Sometimes we have problems with technology. So, as we're going through. So, Hong Kong, I understand. This could be Los Angeles or Hong Kong. Pollution at Disneyland. That can be a real problem. But it turns out that Hollywood in the movies isn't very good of offering a better vision of the future. When I ask people in America, think about movies that offer a better vision of the future, nobody could give me an answer. Almost all of the movies that come from America, I don't know about here in Hong Kong and in China, all of the movies show an apocalyptic future. Look, this was supposedly 2012. That's my hometown of Los Angeles. It doesn't look very happy. There are earthquakes and floods and fires. This supposedly was the future. Another one, the day after tomorrow, where will you be? I hope we'll be at a social entrepreneurship conference. There goes the alarm. It could be an emergency. Another one, Oblivion. It turns out, this says, I don't know if you can read the words, it says, the earth is just a memory. We've destroyed the earth. Even in old movies in America, here's one, The Planet of the Apes. And this is the dystopian apocalyptic future. We've destroyed the earth and apes have taken over. The poor Statue of Liberty gets destroyed in a lot of movies. This one is called Escape from New York. New York has become so dangerous that it's a maximum security prison. The entire island of Manhattan is a prison. This is Waterworld. Global climate change has flooded the world. I don't know what that Godzilla monster is, but other ones. Back to the Future, too, a movie with Michael J. Fox. 25 years ago, they tried to predict what the future would be like in 2015. That's 2 months away. This is what they predicted the future would be like. There would be movie advertisements where sharks could come out and eat you. So that's kind of scary. Even children's movies. This is a Disney movie some of you may have seen called WALL-E. And in WALL-E, we've completely destroyed the earth and it's all trash and pollution. So finally, I found one movie that seemed like it was optimistic about the future. It has pictures of greenery and forests. It's called Fern Gully, but when you look at the lettering, thank you. When you look at the lettering, it says it's the last rainforest left. How depressing. So what we need as social entrepreneurs and social innovators is to stop focusing on how unsustainable our society is, on everything that's wrong with our society. We need to focus on a better vision, a cleaner glass of water. And it starts with the people in this room, because the real geniuses, the people who are going to change the world, are in this room. So if you are a person who, like Jenny and like Meera and like me, wants to just, if your life could save, if you could just save one person's life, I'd like you to stand up. If your goal is that you could just make a difference in touching at least one person's life, please stand up. Please stand up. If you feel like you want to make a difference in the world, make a meaning in people's lives. So I want to applaud you. You are the people who are changing the world. This is the science of making the world a better place. Thank you.
Scott, thank you. Please stay. Please stay. Thank you. All right, Scott, challenge for you. Okay, can you come up? Can you come up? Hold this.
Yes.
And hold this.
Yes.
Side by side. Which one do you think you can drink?
Well, this one's from a social enterprise, so it's probably pretty good.
Yes, exactly. So don't judge water or any person per se by its color. All right, the tea is for you. This is actually toilet water. It's just to drink. So please stay, and we would like you to stay for the Q&A together with Jenny and Meera. So would Jenny and Meera please come on stage? Let's put a big hand together with them. I'll put the toilet water aside. The tea is safe. The tea is safe, so don't worry. All right. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Meera. Okay. This is actually very safe. Oh, you got water. You want to try some jasmine tea? Okay, some jasmine tea for Jenny, please. All right, I'll sit here. Oh. Okay. Before we begin Q&A, can I just want to ask you the question for this summit this year? As of today, the 3rd of November, what is your answer for tomorrow? You can say tomorrow as if the 4th of November, or tomorrow in a very long sense. Because I think in Hong Kong, how should we talk, communicate with the next generation has been a really big issue for the past 6 weeks or so. So how should we inspire the next generation, or how should we interact with the next generation? Because the next generation has inspired the entire Hong Kong for an entire month. So, Meera, should you start first? What is your answer for tomorrow?
Okay. I think, I'm going to take the angle of access to energy, just because that's what I know, and because 2 billion people, as I said, don't have access to energy. And for us, it's not necessarily always about the sexy stuff. It's not necessarily always about who's got the latest clean tech solution. That's great. If you have it, fantastic, excellent. But if you're looking to really make systemic change, if you're looking to do something that's going to impact millions of people, I really would encourage people to not just think about technology, but to think about the whole supply chain. And if you're thinking about the whole supply chain, you're not just engaging with one type of person. So I would encourage people, I was speaking to someone in the audience before, and they were saying funding is a real issue. And at least from our experiences, I would encourage you to go out there and talk to not the traditional people. Don't just talk to the usual social impact investor. Talk to corporates. I was recently working with Unilever. I didn't talk to the foundation. I went to their business unit because it made sense for their business, for their social impact. So talk to corporates, talk to governments, talk to other NGOs, and work together. Because I think if we work together, we can achieve systemic change. And I don't think that's necessarily appropriate just for the energy sector, but for many other sectors.
But how do you know that they will listen?
Because I've had experience in it. So, for example, in Kenya, when we're trying to address indoor air pollution, one of our partners called EnviroFit, who sold 1 million cook stoves globally, they needed to access a different distribution chain. So in rural Kenya, DHL, no one is going to distribute products because demand is fragmented, it's dispersed, it's expensive. But guess what? There is a Coca-Cola bottle in every poor village. How does it get there? They have invested capital. Likewise, Unilever somehow gets its product to the village. Can we work together? We're not asking for it to be free, but can we work together? Because you're going there anyway.
So share your experience with each other in order to find out the solutions for tomorrow.
And it has, obviously it has to be compelling, right? So, Unilever is one example. Vodafone is another example, which is, a global network operator. They have developed a mobile money technology platform that has changed the way people transact. People are now financially included. People in many parts of the world don't have access to a bank account. Now in Kenya, more money is transacted on mobile money than Western Union globally. So I think you've got to have the right conversation, but Unfortunately, you've got to have it with the right person in the organization.
All right, thank you, Meera. Jenny, what is your answer for the wrong?
Well, I always go back to the beginning of life. I mean, from my point of view, what I have learned in my work is that it all begins with our children. The future is in the smallest of us, and right at that point is the point where we can start building the potential. We don't know what humans are capable of until we focus our energy and our attentions on providing nurturing care and love to every child on this planet, whether they're blood relatives or whether they are children living in adversity and in any number of circumstances. That if we can nurture our children, make them know their lives matter. Those children, as the quote that I'm so fond of, all the children who are held in love will know how to love others. Spread these virtues in the world. Nothing more need be done. That was said in 300 BC by a Chinese philosopher. And that's the truth. If we empower our children by letting them know that they matter, their lives matter. Somebody was saying to me earlier, people have really good ideas about what they'd like to do, but they're afraid. They're afraid they can't make a difference. Children know from the beginning they can do things. They can do things and somebody cares about them. They will make all the difference. It may not happen in your lifetime or mine, but they will save our planet.
But how do you show your care? Because sometimes if you care a lot, it will become pressure. How do you find the right balance?
Well, you know, as someone who has worked with young children for 16 years, we have certain approaches that we use, but they're all based on the same principles. It's about providing nurturing care and really respecting human beings from the beginning of life as human beings.
Right.
And recognizing that everybody has something to offer. If we nurture it, children can reach their potential and probably solve all of our problems.
Conversation, respect. Scott, your answer for the wrong.
Yes, so I would build off that. There's another quote that comes from the internet, so I can't verify its authenticity. But Albert Einstein supposedly said, "Everyone is a genius, but if we were to judge a fish by its ability to ride a bicycle, then we would think that it doesn't have any capacity." And that's often what we think of as ourselves, like, oh, I can't do something, so I'm not worthy. But everybody truly does have this capacity for genius. The American psychologist Abraham Maslow once came to a group of college students and said, "Who here has aspirations of greatness?" And nobody raised their hands. And he said, "If not you, then who?" Because I think if we learn a lesson from the students over the last 6 weeks, it is that there is immense power among young people, immense power among everyone in Hong Kong, all of us working together, immense power in China. China is the superpower of the 21st century. And for the amount of power that is here to change the world, we just have to recognize that we have this power inside us.
Okay, so we have care and respect, conversation with experience, and also power and aspiration. So thank you for the three speakers. Now may I turn to the audience. Anyone has questions for our speakers, our keynote speakers for today? My staff will bring the microphone to you right away. And I have a shout out over there, gentleman in row L. H? Really? No, the H is the gentleman in front of you. All right.
Hi, good afternoon. I have a question for Dr. Sherman. You talked about social aikido and transforming enemies into allies. Can that sort of thing work with a group like ISIS? And what can social enterprise do in that regard?
That's a great question. So Interestingly enough, the way that we can deal with ISIS and groups that use violence is to offer a better alternative in society. So a friend of mine named Khalida Rohi, she works in Pakistan, and she was doing work very much like Jenny's in a sense, to lift half the sky. She was doing a lot about empowerment of young women. And she was getting all kinds of death threats, and people actually bombed her office, and people felt that she was a threat. And so there was just violence, all kinds of violence against her. And she realized that what she was doing was making people feel threatened, even though she had the best of intentions, of course. So she changed her approach, and she, as strange as it sounds, she invited her enemies in to be her allies, and she affirmed the best parts of the culture. And then they felt really prized, and so the people who had been threatening to kill her ended up becoming her biggest allies and working with her to uplift women. So that's one example. I don't know, I have to be honest, I don't know if it would work with ISIS. I can't pretend to have all the solutions, but I have seen examples where very violent people have been transformed by a process of social aikido.
Any further questions? Any other questions from the audience? Over there, gentleman in row B. I'm sure this is row B. Thank you. Any further questions? Just have a show of hands so that we know. Right up there, in row N, in the middle of row N. Your question, gentleman.
Yes, I may raise a question. If you can make some investment in education field, like those to be the volunteer now occupying the central, if they are all volunteer, they will do much help to the society, right? But the governor, but the governor, he doesn't want the budget to be focused on the welfare basis. And instead of this, the government even start another field of education after school. And I am the representative, a secretary of the Hong Kong Tutorial School Education Association. We have 6,000 schools to help government to look after the students of the school. But they get another business inside the school and pick up our business. That's a scheme for helping the poor. But now instead, some of us.
And your question is?
Because we lost.
We don't have a governor, first of all. We have a chief executive now. But what is your question? Excuse me.
I mean, would it be better to start for more volunteer?
More volunteers.
More volunteers.
More volunteers.
Yeah,
how can
to
we
help
encourage
the
more
society.
volunteers?
And also making use of those existing sources.
Lovely. I think we are talking about the concept of social capital, volunteerism, and inspire people for more social innovation. Jenny.
I just think that the fact that people are coming together at places like this to talk to each other is the beginning of that. I think it's wonderful that you're doing this and that you have lots of opportunities this week to meet with each other, and the best things happen when people come together and talk and discuss their problems, discuss their differences, and that's when the most innovative solutions happen. They don't all happen from the minds of social entrepreneurs. Sometimes they just happen if we can all get in a room and work things through together, which is kind of what you're saying about your solution for ISIS, which I thought was really bold of you to offer that possible solution. Talk to each other. Talk to each other. You can make things happen. And if you want to encourage the volunteer sector, talk to some people here. I bet you'll find some others who'd love to work with you to make that happen.
I think the question is also people with a good course, like social entrepreneurs, sometimes find it very difficult to recruit young people and volunteers to help them. And not too many people have the charisma. At least they don't think they have the charisma. But at first, they don't have the charisma.
They don't think they do. They worry about
But usually, once they have built up their confidence, and with more and more volunteers, the charisma comes the way. But how to make the first step to invite more people to join in a cause where sometimes even the social entrepreneurs himself or herself is quite unsure. So how do you build up that confidence and charisma to recruit more young people to join your cause? Scott or Meera?
I mean, I might say something controversial here, but hey, you said speak the truth. I mean, I think volunteering is great, but I think there's a role for it. So it depends on what role are you filling within your organization. And do you need someone full-time? Do you need someone 50% of the time? Or do you need someone, once a week or so forth? So there's definitely a role for it. And I think it's great, it's fantastic. I volunteer myself as well. But I think I just want to share another experience that we've seen in this space, in finding talent as a social enterprise is so difficult. I think it's one of the biggest difficulties our social enterprises face is the HR issue. How do you find the right talent who can make this business model work in really difficult countries, or maybe not in really difficult countries? How do you convince them to leave a really highly paid job and probably not get such a well-paid job? I mean, for us, that's been really difficult, and for us, what we've realized over a long period of time is not to compromise. So actually sometimes, yes, volunteering is excellent and it's great, and we have fellowships, and there are different fellowships that work, but in terms of getting an enterprise from one stage to the next stage, we've realized actually you can't compromise on that talent, and actually you might have to offer market rates where it's relevant.
All right, find the talent, pay the market rate. All right, Scott.
Yes, so I think a lot of times with recruitment of talent, in the United States, my experience is we do it completely backwards. So we have a cause that we're very passionate about. So for example, on college campuses at Berkeley, for example, my own college campus, people will go out and try to recruit talent to volunteer, and they'll come up to you and say, "Save the blue-footed booby." And you're like, "Excuse me, what's going on?" And they're like, "You have to care about this." And they try to hit you over the head with what they care about, rather than asking you what you care about first. And so instead of listening and empathizing with other people, we think that everybody should care about our cause and everybody should volunteer for our program. And what we found is much more powerful is to go ask people, what are your hopes? What are your dreams? What are your fears? What do you care about most? Very few people ask this question. And when you tap into what people care about the most, then they'll want to volunteer or get a paid job, because they're discovering themselves what really matters to them.
Great. There's a question over there, somewhere here. And then there's a gentleman raised their hand over there. Can I have a microphone over there first, and then the lady here? Can you raise your hand? Yes, over there. Oh, here. You know what? If the mic is not going to you, I will go to you. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're three very successful people. I like failure. I want to know if you can tell me, I believe very much in the fail, fail again, fail better kind of principle. What have been your most impactful failures in terms of your own journey, and what you've learned from them and why, and how have they helped you get to success?
Thank you. Okay, for time's sake, can I collect 3 questions together? Yes, you still have not the mic? I thought you have the mic. Any further questions? Where's the third questions? Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon.
You first. Ladies first?
Thank you. Okay, quickly. Thank you all presented for the wisdom you shared. My main question is, when you are passionate about something, I understand you invest in yourself. I'm currently at HKU studying English language education, getting my PhD. But then the question then is, how do you get access to the right people? Meera, you said it's about thinking outside of the box, thinking of a complete strategy. how do you access the right people? You have the websites and you send an email, but sometimes it's like throwing a rock into a river. So how do you access the right people once you have the academic understanding of what it is you're passionate about doing?
Okay, access to the right people. And the third question. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for your patience.
Good afternoon, free speaker. Actually, this is not a question. I would like to make a simple request. Could I invite you three to give some few simple statements to motivate the young people in Hong Kong today, to inject some positive energy to them, because we all believe that young people is the future of Hong Kong today. Most of the attendants here today are middle-aged people like me, over 45 years old. But young people is our future. So I want most of the attendants here today go back to home, go back to their office space, go back to their own environment, to share more positive energy with the young people. Okay, thank you.
Good. Access to the talent. The first question, you remember the first question? How to deal with failure? Yeah, and can you leave a sentence for the young people? So,
well,
Scott,
I'd love to start on failure, because if you read my book, you'll understand that because I was unqualified to do the work that I set out to do, and went to China where I didn't speak the language or know anything about the culture. Failure was my middle name. I failed almost every day at what I did, and I'm not even going to go there. I don't even know which the biggest one was. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter, and that's also what I would say to the young people. It doesn't matter if you fail. And to the question about how do I reach the right people that get me where I want to go, it doesn't matter. The point is to get out there and start making things happen. Don't worry about doing all the research. Don't worry about, getting 23 on your test when the score should be 100. Don't worry about any of it. You just keep your eye on the prize. You know where you want to go. You just keep going. I cannot even begin to tell you how many major failures I had in China. But I knew I was going to do this thing. I think I was put on earth to do this thing, and I was just going to figure out how to do it. I feel like my journey, because I'm a Westerner, and Westerners tend to, barge ahead. It doesn't really work in China. It doesn't really work in Asia. That's not the way things happen. What I learned was that the journey was kind of like those Asian gardens, Japanese garden, or Chinese garden, where you see in the middle this beautifully carved mountain or statue or something that you can see almost from anywhere in the garden. But when you try to walk toward it, if you try to go in a straight line, you're going to bump into a wall or a tree or something that's put there that's going to divert you. So you have to go this way, and then you have to go that way, and you keep running into things. The most important thing is keeping your eye on where you're going. Be willing to be flexible, especially if you're working on this side of the world, but I think it's true everywhere.
Jenny, but how do you get access to the right people when you're not familiar with China? How do you do it?
How did I do it? I reached out to everybody I could possibly think of, and I never left a conversation without coming away with something. I might not get an introduction, but I get the name of somebody who might know somebody, or I might get a piece of information about where to look for what I needed. I always just kept going where I was going, and I never worried about failing. I never worried about the stumbling blocks. Thank you very much for nothing. I'll just take this one little thing and I'll go on to the next place.
Right. So just make sure Fela is your middle name, but not your last name. Not your last name, all right? Okay, Scott.
Yes, so we failed many times. I shared this story with a number of you yesterday. When I finished my research, my doctoral advisors at the university where I did my PhD said, you should take this and train the next generation how to change the world. You need to take this research and teach young people how to make a difference. So I had already been hired as a professor at UCLA, the University of California at Los Angeles, and so with a colleague, we decided to teach a course on how to change the world most effectively. And I don't know, I know there are many professors in the room, there are many people who have taught. I don't know if you've ever had this experience where you're teaching and everybody in the audience is like, it's very depressing. And every day we were failing. Every day the students looked bored or disinterested or looked at us like we were crazy. So every day we had to iterate, and we were failing and failing again, and so we changed it so that we could perhaps make it more effective. And finally, when we got to the end of the semester, the UCLA administration called us in, and they said, we need to talk to the two of you. And we said we were afraid of this day. And they said, have you seen your students' evaluations? And we said, no, but we apologize. And they said, why are you apologizing? We want to congratulate you. This is the #1 course, the highest ranked course at the university. And we said, how bad is this university? But it turned out, and this goes to the last question that we were asked, the reason that even though we were failing and failing and failing again, it was because we had a class about hope, a class about inspiration, a class about solutions, a class that said young people, and not just young people, but all of us, everybody in this room, can make a tremendous difference in the world, which nobody was getting in their classes like that before. People were getting analyses of problems and critical analysis of everything that's going wrong with the world, but nobody was getting a class about hope and about what we can actually do. So I leave with the same message as Jenny and Meera, I'm sure, that the message for the young people is that we can change the world, and we are changing the world, and tomorrow, the answer to tomorrow is we are creating a better tomorrow. As for your question, I'll talk to you because I've got lots of answers.
Okay, Meera. How to deal with failure, access to talents, and also how to talk to young people and leave a sentence.
I think coming from the UK, being Indian and actually from East Africa, a little bit confused. The UK's just, I would say, entrepreneurship, social, it's all really taken off really well. But the concept of failure, the word failure, people are only now, I would say relatively recently, very comfortable with the word failure. If you go to somewhere like Silicon Valley, a VC investor wouldn't talk to you if you haven't failed. It's like you don't know, right? If you go to India or China, I'm sure it's a completely different conversation. So I think I'd just like to start off with, don't be afraid to fail. You should fail. And for us, I mean, in my speech before, I really did talk about from 2000, I'd say, to 2007, 9, we completely learned. We tested, we tried, we did, it didn't work. We tested, we tried, we did, it didn't work. But I think, for me, if we say, is it good or is it bad? It wouldn't be good if we didn't talk about it, if we didn't share, if we didn't communicate. It wouldn't be good if we ourselves didn't learn. And I think often innovation stems from failure, right? Because you've actually tested something. So I would actually encourage you to fail. I encourage you to test. Don't go out and talk to someone until you've tested it. Develop this tiny prototype. Let it fail, but talk about your failures. If you don't talk about your failures, I truly think you have failed. You know? And I think from Shah Foundation's perspective, initially when we started, we actually saw the poor as beneficiaries. People who, you know, we thought they couldn't pay for something. We thought they were needy. You know, actually, we were completely proven wrong. But we needed to be proven wrong, and we're okay with that. And actually, they actually aren't willing to take risks because for them that's too big a risk. They actually want to pay a little bit more for something that they know is lower risk, and they know that organization will be around. So I think, again, I echo what you both say. On the how do you find the right person or who to talk to, I think we can maybe take that offline, but just one small piece of advice.
So the answer is talk to her, right?
But one small piece of advice someone gave me personally was, whenever you ask for something, always try and give something back in return. You don't want to be that person who's always asking, and it's okay at the beginning, and it doesn't have to be immediately that you give something back, but maybe later on down the line, a month later, a few months later, you see something interesting, always try and give back, because you'll always remain in that network. And don't feel you need to improve your business model or your idea and then talk to someone. Get the ball rolling.
Well, actually, I think we can connect the messages from our three speakers and come up with one sentence for our next generation, for our young people. It's okay to fail because we care about you so much, and also because the next generation is our hope. So it's okay that we keep on telling them it's okay. All right, so thank you, Scott, Jenny, and Meera. And before I let you off stage, can I invite the chair of our organizing committee, Dr. Jane Lee, to present with you some interesting souvenirs made by students. It's a very interesting, what we call flower plate. But it's not really flower, it's a mini flower plate. And with our logo on it. Jane, can I also invite the students who made this? Actually, they were here. They are right there in one of the booths. Can I also ask them to come? And no? No, come. Don't be afraid. It's not a failure. We care about you so much. Come on. Okay. Scott, thank you so much. 淨係你一個咋？你不如掹埋佢哋上去啦，如果唔係我會捉佢哋上去。好啦 ，OK Jenny， It's Jenny Bowen。OK。And Miss Meera Shah。OK， 一齊影張相啦，好嘛？你哋來自邊間學校啊？自己介紹啦。
我哋係嚟自上多年總會李兆基中學中五嘅同學。
哇，好快喎！你可唔可以讀慢少少啊？順德年總會咩話？
李兆基中學中五嘅同學。
係因為佢哋要翻譯㗎，你讀得唔快，佢哋翻譯唔到㗎，其實好嘛 ？Okay, they are saying their school name. It's a tongue twister. I'm going to test you during dinner tonight. But thank you. They made a very beautiful. It's a very traditional Chinese craft. 你哋不如行到前面一齊影張相嘛 ？Let's walk in the front and take a picture together. Thank you. 好啦，同學們不如都喺前面啦，好嘛？同阿主席一齊影張相啦！大家俾啲掌聲，我哋幾位同學啊！佢哋咧亦都啱啱贏咗咧。東華三院有一個社會企業嘅獎項嘅。好啦，多謝晒 Jane， 多謝晒咁多位同學 ，Thank you Jenny、Scott and Meera。好啦，我哋下一個環節咧都未走得住，因為我哋仲有咧今晚晚飯之前咧仲有幾樣嘢需要同大家宣佈嘅。咁但係喺宣佈之前咧，我哋不如即刻嚟下一個環節啦。下一個環節咧就係我哋嚟自中山嘅朋友。日先杯中山海外青年公益創新大賽嘅頒獎儀式，中山嘅朋友喺嗰度喎，俾啲掌聲佢哋啊！多謝你嘅嚟，多謝你嘅嚟，越嚟越多人啦，非常之感謝你！社企民間高峰會咧，非常之歡迎你哋，下年買定飛啦嚇，快啲買定2015年嘅飛啦！好啦。